I'll stand on this.
Hello, everybody. Thank you for joining us today. What we're going to be talking about today is some of the lessons and some of the experiences we've had on our journey to building a integration platform and integration capabilities at Hyatt. So let's kind of jump in here. Just about us. I've been in this role for 2 years. I came in to help create and start this sort of integration strategy. I have 10 years experience in integration space. I have been in multiple sort of industries along my experience. I started out as a software engineer, kind of working my way up through leadership track. And now I really enjoy solving complex problems, and integration at a hospitality company can be kind of complex.
And I will say, Brian is a great leader, but keeping him away from the code is hard. So yeah, I've got a little less experience, but a lot of it has been in integrations as well, also in a couple industries. And I joined Hyatt just after Brian did.
Yeah. So a little bit about Hyatt. Who doesn't know about Hyatt? Raise your hand. Anybody not see Hyatt before? So Hyatt is a global brand. We have basically been growing over the last 5 to 10 years through acquisition. So we've kind of acquired a lot of smaller hotel chains. Sort of what we'll see here, just outside of 1,300 properties, we have quite a few different brands across the landscape. We tend to sort of focus in the luxury and lifestyle areas. But we've really probably more well known for inclusive sort of brands, so that you're basically everything that you need is at the property where you're at, and they're usually at beautiful locations. One thing I'll mention is throughout the slide you'll see a lot of images as our sort of base on the presentation that are from our properties, and they're beautiful properties. So let's talk a little bit about the challenges that we started out with wanting to try and solve, and why this platform and strategy was really important for Hyatt. Some of the main drivers that we needed that came to us to try and solve were many of our main systems. So for a hospitality company, some of the main systems are a central reservation system, a property management system, so that system is something that would be used at the property itself to check in guests, check out guests, and then a revenue management system. So how the rooms get priced and how people can maximize their profitability. Hyatt had built their own central reservation system they've been running for over 30 years. One of the things that when our new CTO came in was to look at what options there are in the marketplace to try and modernize what our current systems capabilities could be. And part of that goal, the really ambitious goal, was to take all three of those main systems and move and find partners in the cloud that could satisfy the requirements that we had. So, right or wrong, they decided to do all three of these at once. That's been a really interesting journey. The team that I kind of took over when I joined was only focused on integrations with the property management system. But soon, as we sort of saw the need for a common and sort of standard way of addressing this, I started to sort of think about strategies and kind of building a new integration team that could focus on delivering a standard integration approach. But one of the things that really drove this was the need that we're going to now have all these major systems as external systems that we'll have to, basically send data to and get data from for all the internal applications that Hyatt uses. The landscape was so varied, essentially, and I'll get to this in the next bit here, but our organizational structure was really siloed. So, and not all the engineering teams kind of report up through a technical leader. So what we found was everyone was doing whatever they wanted and was picking whatever tools they wanted with no sort of governance or oversight. So when you're talking about one system that may need data from the property management system and another one may need, similar or like data from a different system, they would just, most of those systems had some type of integration capability through an API or what have you. But ultimately, everyone was doing their own thing, doing it all different ways, using all different types of technology. So you can imagine if the new spec of that system changed, you have to make that change in, dozens of places.
That might sound familiar from yesterday's keynote.
Yeah. So realizing that, in order to really, save our time, save time in just standard development, we wanted a distinct approach and standard approach to how we deal with integrations. I mentioned about the organizational silos. This makes for really challenging when you don't have a common hierarchy from an authority perspective. So at Hyatt, we do have an enterprise architecture group, but they basically say, here's what we want you to do, and there's zero enforcement. So essentially we had the standards in place. The group did a great job of sort of describing what a great state would be, but there was no follow-up to say, are you actually following these standards? And most times people didn't even know where they were. So there's some things we could have done better on that side to be more advocate and sort of advertise the sort of data that was out there. But for this, because we know we're in this situation, it makes it even more important that we have a standard approach, and then we go and teach the masses about what's available on the platform. And so we make sure that people don't go and build their sort of, one-off sort of solution and have to do extra work and actually pay extra money to actually develop for changes. And I kind of mentioned this already, but the lack of standardization really was tough because even if we were the sort of subject matter experts, because they weren't using a common approach. There was logging wasn't the same, metrics weren't the same. So there was no way of really seeing the broader picture of all the integrations that were happening under a sort of single pane of glass. So these things kind of, and many more, but these are the main ones I kind of looked at just to say we need a different way of doing this work. So I'm sure many of you out there have been in a situation where you're, okay, we have this idea, we have this thing that we need to do. We have engineers, but do we really want to solve the same problem that it's been solved already? We don't want to reinvent the wheel. So let's look at what options are out there in the marketplace, and then compare that to what we feel we could provide and what unique sort of approach we could do on ourselves. So this is back in, I want to say April of 2023. As I kind of got settled in my role, I just started this December before, just the previous December. I'm thinking that we need to figure this out. And ultimately, what I want to make sure we're doing is, I don't want to feel it by gut. I want to use data to help us figure out the best way to make this decision. So I worked with our architecture team and a myriad of other sort of leaders at the company on the technology level, come up with some criteria for what we would want to be able to solve for. Understanding that the ultimate goal was to provide an integration platform that everybody could use and have a consistent sort of experience. About a month of that, we came up with some good criteria, I think. And then basically we're looking for who are the players in the market. Now I mentioned I've been in I've had this experience for the last 10 years. I've been through this build versus buy a lot. And so I knew the kind of players involved. If you want to give me after, I'll tell you which ones that we looked at. But ultimately, I came up with 5 different vendors to look at. I looked at the Gartner research, the Forrester research, and figured out who those top contenders would be. And I picked 2 out of the 5 were ones that were not in the high one. I wanted to see companies that were innovating, who were maybe just up and coming, who would be open to collaboration, open to to make changes if we find that there's some things that their platform may not do that we need. So we evaluated 3 major competitors, and we did two sort of ones that were just up and coming. So once we got that list together, I got a small team of various people in the company to sort of help do proof of concepts. These are really small events, like could be done in a day. So I basically developed a very simple sort of like, I want you to prove you can do this thing. And it was based off of some of the integrations that I knew we were going to have to do. So consuming XML, consuming JSON, making transformations, publishing those to an event stream, and doing some mapping along the way. So I tried to make it so we could do it in a day, and it wouldn't spend a lot of our time sort of working through it. But it took us quite a few months to sort of get through that evaluation. At the end, around October, we had an evaluation. I sort of created a sort of survey, and then had at least 10 people sort of who were part of the demo along the way. Try an unbiased sort of view into what they thought of the solutions that we POC'd. And it wasn't unanimous, but there was one vendor that came out just above everything else. So in our organization, we really have to work to get funding approved. So basically, from October to December, I'm talking to leadership. I'm gathering data, trying to understand like the best prices we can get for the platform we picked, and finally got approval in December. I don't want to waste any time. So January 2024, let's do this. Came up with a really good sort of business case proof of concept that was low impact. I wanted something that would exercise the system, but would not be such an undertaking that it would be hard to sort of prove success. So we had this need to provide a currency exchange service. We had one before, but it was using the old system that was being moved to the cloud. So we needed a replacement. So the success criteria was really, can we build this currency exchange, get it through our non-prod and prod environments, and actually have it in production in 1 to 2 months? Because the requirements were really simple. So we developed the plan, worked with the vendor to sort of outline what we're looking for, and came up with sort of a milestone approach to the plan. February to May, we were training. We were using the project as a way to help us train. So we weren't doing hello world. We were doing, let's actually work on the actual thing we want to work on, so we can basically leverage all the knowledge that we're learning along the way and make it be sort of applicable. However, May 2024, we experienced some challenges with the platform that should have been very simple things to do. The use case that we had was very clearly laid out. They indicated that there would be no problem doing the things we were looking to do. And by the time we got to the part where we had to do the most interesting part of that project, it just kept falling short. So I made a huge investment in this platform. I worked really hard to get funding, but at the end of the day, I have to get this platform out to the company. And so I was sort of struggling with, what do I do? Do I try and push through, or do I need to pivot? And the experience we were having, even though it was only 3 months, was kind of souring me on the platform itself. So I made the difficult decision to move away from it. And what does that mean? I mentioned I have a lot of years of experience in software engineering. As we heard, the statement is true. Software engineers want to build. And at the end of the day, I have great software engineers on my team, and having them do a sort of a low-code approach wasn't necessarily something they were like jumping up excitement to do. They were all willing to do it, but at the end of the day, I was sort of a little bit soured on the platform part of this. So we decided to look at some open source solutions that were out there. We'll say one of the vendors we evaluated was WSO2. It was Choreo, I think, at the time that we were doing it. But they also had discussed Ballerina. So we're all from the engineering side, we were very intrigued in that language, having integration foundations and fundamental sort of libraries built in and sort of approach. We decided that we would love to see what it could do. I didn't want to take it on face value, so at our company, I'll say for the most part, do use Java as our sort of base language. But I also didn't want to just assume that's what we were going to do. I wanted to evaluate what options were out there and would there be a better and a faster sort of technology we could use to help us get to where we wanted to be. So we evaluated Java, Python, Ballerina. I think we also did a POC for the microintegrator. But at the end of the day, the engineers wanted to use a language. And when we did our proof of concepts, this was all internally. So we came up with an idea of what we needed to provide, what we needed to see. It was very similar to the criteria of the software vendors that we evaluated. And we took basically a month or two to like work through some examples, and at the end of the day, we had the same type of like evaluation. Like, which one did you feel was the best experience for what you were doing? Did it have all the capabilities that we were having? They all ranked fairly high. Like these languages are in the ecosystem, been around a long time. So libraries are not an issue. Anything you want to do in Python or Java is available to you. But what we found was the speed at which we could actually code something in Ballerina, and the amount of code we had to write was so small that I was like, this seems like a really good approach to sort of take. So at the end of the day, we chose Ballerina. And August of last year, we started. We started with that language, thinking about the sort of first project we were doing in the other platform. So let's recreate that example with the currency exchange, and let's get this into production and see how it works. However, Hyatt has a good tendency to change focus and priorities pretty, not to say randomly, but we're an ever-evolving company. We get acquisitions, and we have to change. We have to get those hotels into our system, and so they're available for across the brands. So we started seeing projects or requests come in to our newly formed integration team about, hey, we have to get this data from our new CRS system into our data warehouse. You guys can do that, right? I'm like, yeah, of course we can do that. We haven't done it yet. We don't have the platform foundation kind of fully outlined, but we have a plan for what that looks like. We started like maybe 2 weeks into the currency exchange, and then we got hit with 3 like major strategic initiatives that would take advantage of what we were kind of putting together. So essentially, we started working on those 2 initiatives. We are always very clear of, I'm not someone who just says yes. I say yes and. I want people to be clear on what the state of things are, right? I'm not creating vaporware. I want to make sure people understand, hey, we have a foundation to build here. We're not done building it. We're just starting. So the time frames won't be like, we can't start today and get you a thing in a month. Like, we're going to be building a foundation in order for us to leverage and scale the type of integrations we're going to have to do in the future. So everyone was kind of, we worked with our stakeholders, and everything was pretty good in that perspective. They understood and allowed us to actually focus on, okay, first let's build some of our foundation, and then be able to immediately use it on these strategic initiatives. Just a few reasons I wanted to cover that we pivoted from build to buy or buy to build. The devs were miserable using this platform, and not that I don't know that in hindsight I would have not necessarily looked at another platform, but they were all raring to go and ready to build, and so I wanted to reduce the time it was going to be from us to start to actually be able to bring in integration projects. We already had skill sets and infrastructure in place. At Hyatt, we have a common. That's one thing that's common is we are able to deploy, and our platform engineering team manages a series of Kubernetes clusters across many environments. So the sort of position of the company was to build microservices in Docker containers and deploy to Kubernetes. So we had a really great and solid infrastructure to sort of work with and wouldn't have to reinvent the wheel or learn something new. And the engineers, although they all knew Java, picked up Ballerina like really quickly. Like in 2 weeks, they were already productive. And ultimately, we want, like with the platforms, they offer a lot of things. But what we were finding was that the one thing that we really needed to do, they were sort of falling short on. So we need flexibility. We need to be able to adapt. And obviously, if you're rolling your own, if you're writing your own code, you have complete control of what that looks like. And so we for these reasons, we kind of were able to kind of justify us moving, unfortunately spending a good chunk of money and then basically not being able to leverage it. But now we're on a good pace.
So why Ballerina? Why not just Java, right? Do we have any Java devs in here or ex-Java devs? Or Go's the cool new thing. Why not just build this in Go, right? We found some key advantages, right? So it's built for integrations, believe it or not. I know we're here at WSO2. What takes files and files and files of Java clients and libraries and finding the right imports, it just kind of worked with Ballerina. Brian mentioned how much we had to pivot back and forth between different things. Being able to do that with Ballerina is really easy. So we get a new project, like it's just kind of reusable, right? You take an old project, make it a new project, you switch which API you're calling, it just kind of works. It was beautiful. We've had an active and supportive community. So while we're all Java devs, Ballerina was new to us, and Discord was a big help. The Ballerina engineers are super responsive. And we found that even though it wasn't something we had worked with before, there was a surprising amount of support for us as engineers. And that kind of goes into the reactive programming model and collaborating. We found some things that we thought were missing or we weren't sure how they worked. And we were able to collaborate with the Ballerina team, and we were able to contribute to the Ballerina programming language. That was my first contribution to open source, so that was really cool. And there were some things that they were able to improve upon after hearing our use cases. That's not something you're going to get with Java, and it's certainly not something you're going to get with something that's not necessarily open source. The documentation is incredible. The Java docs, they're old, right? Java docs are there. You have documentation, but it's not example driven. You got to go to other websites, to blogs. You got to go copy paste from Stack Overflow. You never know what you're going to find. But with Ballerina, it was kind of really good documentation on how it works, but also with examples on what you're trying to accomplish. And it's an opinionated platform. This is what I hated most about Ballerina when I started using it. And then I grew to love it, because when you're building integrations, like the last thing you want to do is have something work really well in dev, and then you deploy to production, and all of a sudden you're facing an incident because this little thing doesn't actually exist. You're just never going to get that in Ballerina, because of the way it's opinionated, anything that's prone to failure is going to fail early and fast, and you can catch it early on. So why open source Ballerina? Some of our evaluation results. Brian mentioned the strong POCs. It was quick. We were able to, from a development perspective, things came up quickly. We ran into some of our internal issues and like deployments and that good stuff. But building with Ballerina was super fast. That was great. purpose-built for integration. We talked about that. Like Java, you can do it, right? You can do anything in Java, but it's going to take a long time. It's going to be hard to digest. With Ballerina, we have people joining the team, and within days they can be productive because they get it, because they're programmers, but also it's purpose-built for integration. So you don't need to like jump from file to file a lot of the time. You just get it. It's just right there. It just works. And like no proprietary technology in the sense that it's open source, right? So that would kind of be true for Java or any programming language that's open source. But the fact that we were able to see something that's not working the way we expect, go find the source code, talk with the engineers, it was just super powerful that we were able to use this openness of it to our benefit. What a beautiful hotel. Some of our key learnings. Find your internal dependencies fast. That's just like if you're integrating, modernizing, you got to know everyone's who's going to use this platform. You got to be ready for them. You got to address it early, and you got to build something that's adaptable. That sounds obvious, but unless.
So one thing about that. So I think one of the things one of the key things we ran into was we had a great platform for building and for our code and deploying to Kubernetes, but they had never done Ballerina, right? So our base images that we needed to use weren't available. So working with our and we have our stuff is like locked down. Like you can't just build an image and have it sort of in our repository. So we had to work with our engineering team, our platform engineering teams to like make sure we had access. Like basically Ballerina was working. Like you would call out to bring down dependencies, but our network was locked down, so you couldn't just go do it. So there's all those things that are just like not programming related, but just like how it works. Knowing like what other people you have to work with in order to make something simple just work was most of the time we spent at the beginning just getting through all that.
Yeah. And again, just like Brian just mentioned, it's not just your downstream dependencies. It's like, who do you depend on to make this work? Because if you're using Choreo, then like that is the platform and you build APIs within it. But if you don't have Choreo, then like, who do you depend on for these deployments? Center of excellence. The engineers who come onto the team are able to pick it up quickly and understand the code, but there's still like fundamentals like, how do we want to build this, standardized processes, whether it's a new service or a way we implement a service. So documenting that is important. You don't want to go overboard where you have hundreds of pages because we've heard sometimes that doesn't work out, but you want to make it digestible.
Yeah, we wanted to provide an onboarding experience knowing that the team is most likely going to grow. So I'm sure the devs were really tired of hearing me say, documentation, document everything. Everything that someone would need to know to get into this thing, I want to see it. I want to make sure it's part of our daily work.
Exactly. And then like other than documenting how you build things, you also want to document decisions. For example, why Ballerina? Well, we just talked about it, but we also want to document that internally. So when I retire in 50 years, maybe, that whoever comes on next is like, why did they choose Ballerina 50 years ago? Now, maybe things will change over 50 years, but it should be documented why you make big decisions.
Those things come up. Like, we mentioned yesterday in one of the keynotes, like you make all these decisions a day.
Right.
And a week and a month. And it's like, sometimes you always want to remember, like, why did we do that? Oh, great. We have documented this. We'll always know. But that's the step that typically gets missed.
Yep.
Is you just like, you make decision and move, which is good in a way, but if you don't document it, you're going to spend time later trying to understand what happened.
Yeah. A supporting community, like use the vendor community, and support, right? Like the WSO2 community has been incredible. It's helped bring us in even more. Now we're talking about Choreo or Devant, we'll see. It's just like super important. Because if something's not working, you don't want to spend weeks trying to figure it out. If there's already a community that's figured it out, don't reinvent the wheel.
Yeah, we're only using the open source Ballerina. We have been getting top-notch support. Like if we were paying millions of dollars, like the team has been incredible on working with us to one, like I feel like they are our partner. We're helping them better their language, and we're helping them understand different types of use cases they may not have encountered before. But it's been an incredible journey with them, and it's one of the main reasons why I still love this language together.
Yeah, and then adaptability. Don't be afraid to pivot when one platform doesn't work out. Pivot to the next. That's important for modernization and integration. When you are developing a currency service and all of a sudden you have to develop a completely different service, pivot. Don't drag your feet. Just pivot it. You're going to have to do it anyway. So in conclusion, I know we're out of time. Adaptability and collaboration, Ballerina, flexible tooling and support, and invest in your community, whether that's your internal community or you're investing upwards into the community that you're using.
Yeah, so essentially, like one of the things that I always try to work about is don't work towards perfection, work for something that works. Really, it's a journey, and what you want to see is progress. And how you're going to see that really well is through collaboration from internal and your external sort of community.
That's right.
All right.
So thank you very much. We're well over time, but if you have questions, come find us.